Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you the Summer Owl canvas of the set of 4 seasonal canvases that I was commissioned to do for a viewer. The idea was that there would be 4 small canvases that could be displayed as a set, one with each season, spring, summer, winter, fall, and each of them would have an owl on them. So this is, like I said, the summer owl. I will link in the description box below, as well as the iCard above. The other one that I've shown so far, which is the fall owl. If you haven't already seen it, you can click on that little eye up in the corner. To start out, I just wanted to get some color on my canvas. Sometimes a white canvas is just, you just look at it and you're like, what am I going to do? So it's always good to just get something on there, whatever it is. And so I decided to use some Marabou Art Spray, which is an acrylic pump spray that the unique property of this particular ink spray is that it doesn't run. It's not water soluble. It doesn't run. So once it's dry, it's on there. And so I sprayed that blue spray on the canvas, kind of concentrating on the top 2/3 of the canvas to begin with, just to get some sky in there. I knew that it was going to be summer. It was going to be beautiful blue skies and white clouds. And when I think of, a summer scene, I think of a beach, a tropical atmosphere, because it's kind of summer in tropical climates all the time. Even though the date may change, it's still sunny with a beautiful ocean or pool or something, and that's just what I think of. So I decided to create that type of a scene for my background, for my owl, by doing some collage, which is kind of something I pretty much always do, right? If you've been watching my channel for a while, you will have seen me do collage. So I started out with some lightweight paper. This is a deli paper that's been printed with acrylic paint using a gel plate. This is something that I love to do, making printed papers or painted papers or whatever you want to call them. And then I keep all the bits. Even after I've used the paper, I keep whatever scraps are left, and I sort them into these plastic boxes that are boxes that mini cinnamon rolls come in from the grocery store. My mom really likes those, and so whenever she finishes one of those packages of mini cinnamon rolls, she gives me the box. And I call them color boxes. I just sort all my little scraps into those boxes, and then when I'm ready for a color, I have a colorful box of that color. So then the next thing I did, I wanted some clouds, and I thought I didn't really want them like solid, so I used some mark making tools that are just trash, basically. A tube from the inside of a paper roll, a little plastic tube that was on the end of a brush to protect it in the store, and I think a cap, maybe 3 different sizes of circles, just kind of making these random whimsical type cloud shapes that remind you of clouds but aren't exactly like a white blob like it could be. And then I did add a little bit of very, very watered down gesso in some areas on the background to kind of emphasize those clouds a little bit as well. Also, I made a tree. This is a palm tree, and I started out with text weight printed paper, tissue paper actually, I guess it was, or maybe it might have been printed deli paper, but it's got text on it. And I created the background of my tree, and then I took some gel printed papers and went over the top and made that kind of look of lines. You know how a palm tree has lines where it started out very low to the ground, and as the palm fronds come out and then they die, you cut them off and the tree grows taller and taller, and you end up with that kind of a texture where it's kind of like petals, but then from a distance it looks like there's lines in the tree. So that's what I was trying to do with that. And instead of doing it the opposite, putting the white over the brown. I put the white first and then put the brown over the top in pieces. Then I had started out with just like a kind of a green grassy hill, and then I decided that I needed to have the ocean in the background, and so I added that in just one little area. Of course, notice that sky is 2/3 and ground is 1/3. That's kind of like a good rule for you to keep to when you're trying to make a landscape type scene. The rule of thirds is visually pleasing. So then I tore out some other pieces of gel printed lightweight papers, deli paper, and tore them into leaf shapes and applied those. And then I also have these little pieces of brown torn paper that are supposed to be coconuts, because this is a coconut palm. I'd like to have a coconut palm. I'd like it to just drop coconuts in my yard, but I don't live in a tropical area. I live in a desert. So we do have palm trees. We have to water them a lot, but they don't have coconuts. I have seen some date palms around in the desert, though. That's where dates come from, if you wondered. I went to a date palm farm in the Palm Desert area of California and learned all about how dates are grown and harvested and everything about them. It was pretty interesting. So then, of course, I had to have a sunshine, so I took a few little pieces of golden yellow papers and created my sunshine. Because what else do you have in the summer but sun? Lots of sun. So now it's time to create my owl. I start out kind of drawing the area that I know that it will fit in, and then I use my pencil to transfer that kind of little square area onto a piece of printer paper. This is a text weight white colored paper. Nothing fancy, straight from the printer. I want a lightweight paper because it's easier to collage and blend into my background, but I want it to be solid so that I can color it and have an opaque color. So just regular old paper from the printer. And I'm using a HB graphite drawing pencil to draw my owl. There's no place for this owl to perch in my scene, and so I need him to be flying, he or she. I'm not sure. I think this one might be a boy too. I really felt that the fall owl was a boy, but I'm not thinking about that when I'm drawing it. It's just like when it gets done, I'm like, I think this is a boy. It looks like a boy. Maybe because of the colors, I'm not sure. So much of my thoughts about art are driven by color. So since the fall owl had a lot of browns, that to me is a guy color, even though I know girls wear brown, but I don't know. It just seems like a guy color to me. So definitely the fall owl was going to be a guy. This one could be either, I guess, but I still think it, maybe because of the plumes over the eyes, that it looks more like a guy. But who knows? I know for sure the spring owl is a girl. When you see that one, you'll be like, yeah, that one's a girl. For sure, for sure. So once I've adjusted my drawing to something that I'm satisfied with, then I come in with my Pitt illustration pens. These are made by Faber-Castell brand, and they are India ink, so they don't run or smear when you color over the top of them with whatever media you're going to use, even with alcohol markers, which is what I'm going to use. They don't smear this black. So these are great pens for doing that type of an illustration where you're going to color it with alcohol markers. I'm using different nib sizes from the set. There's everything from a brush pen and a chisel pen down to very teeny tiny nibs, little bullet tips. And when you use different size nibs to do different parts of illustration, it makes it more dynamic. So I use the brush tip to do the outside lines and around the feathers on this one. to make them really stand out. And then for the finer details, I'm using the small and the extra small bullet nibs to draw in all the little, feathers and different stuff, all the detailing on the insides of the feathers, which I will get to in a minute. When you look at the teeny tiny detailing I did on the inside of those feathers that I'm doing right now with the extra small, it almost looks gray because they're so tiny. It's not. It's black, little teeny fine black lines, but it looked gray when I was watching the video, which I thought was kind of strange. I have all kinds of bumpy feathers on this guy. A line with like little wispy things on the bigger feathers. He's got these crazy eyebrow looking things over his eyes. Probably needs some trimming scissors for those. They almost seem like they should be gray, like he's maybe an older guy, but they don't end up being gray. So I don't know. The illustration portion of this one was long. You guys might be curious as to how long these canvases are taking me. And this one started out at 3.5 hours of footage, and it is sped up to 8 times fast, except for the very end is only 4 times fast, but all the rest of it is 8 times fast in order to condense it down to 20 minutes. I think it ends up being 19 minutes something seconds. So now I've got out my Spectrum Noir alcohol marker charts, and I'm looking at the canvas, looking at the charts, trying to decide what colors to use. I want to use similar colors that are in the background into the foreground while also making this be my focal image, so he has to stand out. So I've got some yellows, I've got some greens, and I've got some browns. And in general, when I'm using these markers, I use multiple tones of the same color. So I have 3 yellows and 3 greens, I think. I don't know if actually maybe I didn't get, I did get brown, okay. A couple different very pale browns, kind of grayish browns. And I'm coloring in all the detail using the lightest color, the lightest tone of the color first, and then going back in with the darker and then even darker to make it like 3D looking, more like not just flat color, but shaded and highlighted color. And I'm enjoying these Spectrum Noir markers. When I first got them, I was a little bit frustrated with them, but I'm getting better at using them and understanding how they work. And so I have the whole set. I've filled in bits and bobs until I have every color, because there's nothing that I hate more than having a color chart that doesn't have all the colors on it. That's like my pet peeve. So if I'm going to get something, I'm going to get all of it. And for Christmas last year, not this year, I received 4 sets of Spectrum Noir markers that came as a group. And I thought that was all the markers. I thought that was all the ones that they had. And so I printed out the color charts, because you can't really tell what the color is from the end of the pin on these. It's not true to form to look at the end of the pin and decide what color that is. So I printed out all the charts, and I was so excited, and I started filling out all the charts and realized I did not have all the colors. So then I had to go in search of the rest of them and slowly add to my collection until I now have every color, unless of course they've come out with more this year. I don't know, then I won't have them all, but I'm fine. I've got enough colors. So I'm just coloring away at this guy, lots of detail, lots of little feathers. I'm also using my white Posca pen. This is an acrylic paint pen, to add some dots and dashes and things in where I think that there needs to be a highlight, like little dots on the dark ends of the feathers, things like that, just to make it more dynamic. And the drawing and coloring of this illustration took longer than doing the collage on the background. I really was into the details on this one. And once it's all colored, gotta cut it out. I left this in, not all of it, but a lot of it in so that you could see what fussy cutting really looks like at 8 times fast. So if you imagine that this is 8 times fast, you can imagine how long it took me just to cut this out. You need to use very sharp scissors with fine points to do this. You don't want to spend all that time making an illustration and then coloring it and then cutting it badly. That's just not good. So you want to take your time and really trim out everything. And then I do take the black brush marker from the illustration set and go around the edges so that there for sure is not any white showing around the edges of the illustration, because I really want it to blend in and appear as though I have drawn and colored it right on this canvas. Although obviously I did not. And I use matte medium to glue that whole thing down, make sure it's got no bubbles and it's very attached to the canvas. Then I have my India ink markers. These are also by Faber-Castell, and they are the Artist Brush Pins, Artist Pit Brush Pins. Sometimes you get them in a larger size. They're called Big Brush, Stampers Big Brush Markers, I think. But they are India ink, and because this whole canvas is sealed with medium, I'm able to blend these. Whereas with the alcohol markers, they still dry too quickly. I can't blend them with my finger. So I like this better for adding shadow around all my images. This makes the canvas look really cohesive. It makes everything feel as though it belongs there, that it's all one unit as opposed to something that I just pasted on there. It's an important step. And well, there you see my winter canvas. I think that the summer was the second one I did after winter, and I'm sorry about my throat, guys. I was comparing to make sure that they looked good together, and that prompted me to decide to go ahead and draw illustration lines around my tree. I just felt that it needed more balance, and so I use, I think, the small size bullet tip illustration pen to go ahead and draw some black lines around my tree as well. It just, I don't know, somehow it just wasn't quite the way I wanted it. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to turn on your notification bell. And of course, share if you want to. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.